Forever. Dog.
Oh, yes. Even a little more than usual. Yes, yes, yes. You know, it's funny. Despite spending the last 2 weeks rewatching Christopher Nolan's entire filmography start to finish, despite staying up until the wee small hours of the morning, to quote Mia Farrow's ex-husband, wrestling with the nature of Nolan, wrestling with the evolution of his cinematic style and the meaning of his movies, wrestling like I'm frickin' Jake the Snake Roberts. I'm wrestling so much. Despite seeing the Odyssey at 2 a.m. opening night on the 70 millimeter IMAX screen at City Walk AMC. The very same IMAX screen, by the way, that Christopher Nolan uses to test screen his movies. Which means, in case you're wondering, yes, I do have a small speech prepared in case I ever run into Christopher Nolan on City Walk. Which is not impossible. It's not impossible. There is video of him on social media walking hurriedly past Raising Cane's like a Oxford undergrad late for their seminar and ducking into the AMC by a side door. So it is not impossible. It is not impossible. And you bet your ass I got a small speech prepared. Or I'm sorry, is life not about seizing your opportunities? Maybe it's not. Maybe I've been misinformed about life. Maybe I shouldn't be prepared for when I inevitably see Sir Christopher Nolan at the Margaritaville bar wearing a blue Oxford button-down under a gray wool cardigan, under a navy blazer, under a tan trench coat. That hairdo of his, that what if Zach Morris went to Eton hairdo of his, glimmering, I can see it now, glimmering in the glow of the hyper-saturated bar TV as it plays charity concert footage of Dave Matthews and Jimmy Buffett, R.I.P., covering Heart of Gold in their bare feet. This is what I would say to Christopher Nolan when I have the good fortune of seeing him at the City Walk Margaritaville. We live in a twilight world.
And there are no friends at dusk.
Hey, Sir Christopher! What an honor. What an honor. I can see that your appetizer has just arrived, so I will not take up too much of your time. I just want to say I'm a longtime admirer of your work, and between you and me, you probably get this a lot. I think that creep David O. Russell should pay for what he did to you at that party in 2003. When, from what I've read, he put you in a headlock? He put you in a literal headlock? Did that happen? In full view of the other guests I was reading? Many of whom I assume were industry power players. And he demanded, by the way, demanded of you that what, you take Jude Law out of consideration? What would it have been? For Batman Begins? So that Jude Law could be in his movie I Heart Huckabees? Is that right? Did that happen?
You're well informed.
Well, thank you. You know, it pays to be well informed in my profession. I'm an online movie critic.
The noblest profession.
Thank you, Sir Christopher. And actually, if you want, I feel like I owe it to you in return for your contributions to the movie industry, which outnumbered David frickin' O. Russell's 10-1. I know where David O. Russell brunch is in Santa Monica. With your blessing, I'd like to go down there and beat the shit out of him. For you. I want to beat the shit out of him for you, Sir Christopher. Humiliate him like he humiliated you. What do you say?
Don't you think Amsterdam was humiliation enough?
That's good. That's good. But no, I do not think that Amsterdam was humiliation enough. I think the headlock is the thing. I think the headlock must be avenged. It keeps me up at night, the headlock. Film history must be set right.
But if time has been reversed, doesn't that mean that us being here now at Margaritaville means the headlock never happened?
Oh. Has time been reversed?
It almost certainly has.
Okay. Well, I guess anything's possible. And if anyone would know about that kind of stuff, it would be you. You would know about that.
Your lava shrimp is getting cold.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Sir Christopher. Look, I'll tell you what. I'm going to be across the bar there for another 30 minutes or so, waiting for my 11:45 screening of Insidious Out of the Further. If you want to greenlight the plan that I just outlined, just put on an additional layer of heavy clothing, and I'll know exactly what it means.
I have a herringbone cashmere scarf that's twice as long as Oppenheimer. Will that work?
It sure will. It sure as hell will, Sir Christopher. And as this is likely the last time we'll ever see each other in person, I just want to quote one of my favorite movies of the 21st century and say, I think this is the end of a beautiful friendship.
Is that from Green Book?
No, it's from Tenet. It's from your movie Tenet.
I'm kidding. Goodbye.
Okay, all right, bye. Thank you. I think that went pretty well. I don't know. I think that went pretty well. I don't know. I'm getting like goosebumps. That went so well. But to get back to my original thought, despite going so deep into Christopher Nolan's filmography over the last 2 weeks that I started entertaining imaginary scenarios in my head like the one you just heard, despite the hours logged, despite the blood and the sweat and the tears, I'm tempted to scrap it all and spend the next 90 minutes talking about the new Paramount Skydance movie, Ebenezer, directed by Ty West and starring Johnny Depp as Ebenezer Scrooge, which debuted its first official teaser trailer at Comic-Con just last week. I'm tempted to put Odyssey, the movie of the summer, on hold and just really get into whatever is happening with Ebenezer. But I'm going to resist that temptation. In large part because there will be time. As Prufrock said, there will be time for Ty West's Ebenezer. There will be time to talk about the fact that within the first 10 seconds of the trailer, we are informed over shots of snowy Victorian London that he brought us Jack Sparrow. We were lonely and cold and starving, and he brought us Jack Sparrow, the master of misfits, which is also an actual tagline in the trailer. The master of misfits brought us Jack Sparrow. The master of misfits, of course, being Johnny Depp, the broken shell of a Cologne spokesman who showed up to Comic-Con last week dressed as Ebenezer Scrooge in what I'm going to assume was the actual screen-worn costume and not a custom Comic-Con fit. Considering that David Ellison, the boy king of Paramount Skydance, is currently being sued. Have you heard this? Currently being sued to stop Paramount's merger with Warner Brothers by, count 'em, his own shareholders, the Writers Guild, 11 state attorneys general, including California AG Rob Bonta, and some very enterprising Paramount Plus subscribers. Although I think that last one might have gotten tossed already. A for effort, though. A plus for effort for the Paramount Plus subscribers. So stay tuned to this space because, fingers crossed, the anti-merger lawsuits might actually be working. It might actually be getting too hot in the kitchen for daddy's little magnate David Ellison, considering this breaking news announced last Friday that, I guess not so breaking anymore. Paramount and Warner Brothers are putting their merger on hold. That's right, on hold until June 1st of next year so that Paramount can focus instead on resolving all these lawsuits. Holy shit! June 1st of next year? Remember earlier this year when I predicted that the merger would close, but at a significant financial cost to Paramount due to the penalties that start accruing on October 1st if the deal doesn't close by then, to the tune of $650 million a quarter. Well, it may turn out that I only got half of my prediction right, but not the half I would have bet on. Not the half I would have bet on in this tech oligarchy era of ours. Because the financial penalties are about to start accruing big time, which means that David Ellison is going to need even more of daddy's money, or even more of Saudi public investment firm money to pay for them. But now the question is, to what end? Is this deal even capable of closing anymore? Paramount is postponing it until June of next year? Unless all the lawsuits settle before then? Well, that doesn't sound promising. And I did the math. If Paramount truly has to wait until June of next year to close this deal, they will end up owing Warner Brothers an additional $1.9 billion in penalties. $1.9 billion! On the other hand, if the merger falls apart completely, Paramount is obligated to pay Warner Brothers $7 billion in breakup penalties. What the hell are they going to do? Honestly, what is going to happen here? And look, I'm not naive. I know the Ellisons essentially have unlimited capital, and the likeliest outcome here is they'll figure it out. They'll find the money. They'll cut some backroom deal, blah, blah, blah. But in which direction are they even negotiating at this point? To close the deal or to get out of the deal? I wouldn't be surprised if right this second, Paramount's lawyers are proposing some revised, cost-efficient exit plan for David Ellison and company. Because if you can't figure out a way to cut and run now, this thing could get bad for Paramount. Even for the Ellisons with all their billions, this thing could get a hold of you and drag you down. Like that friggin' Charybdis in the Odyssey, which I will return to shortly. The point is, the lawsuits are working. Keep them coming. Hell, I'll sue Paramount. Sounds fun. I'll take a crack at it. Your Honor, this once great movie studio, Paramount Pictures, which brought us Chinatown and Fire in the Sky, is guilty of corporate malpractice, dare I say corporate malfeasance, in collusion with the Spyglass Media Group for the absolute ruin they have brought upon the once great franchise Scream. Starting with Scream 5, which I refuse to call by its official title Scream because I find it disrespectful to the legacy of the original. Paramount ruined Scream, Your Honor. And that is the number one reason why this merger cannot go through. Because God forbid we let these same clowns, and I look at them when I say it, these same clowns get their hands on Final Destination or Evil Dead or, dare I say it, Nightmare on Elm Street. May the spirit of Wes Craven haunt the Ellisons until their dying day. Not Megan, though. Just Larry and David. Larry David. I never put that together until now. The prosecution rests. The point is, the Paramount Skydance purse strings are tight and getting tighter in light of this looming financial disaster. And that, by the way, was the implied reason why David Ellison refused to pay for a fresh Ebenezer Scrooge costume for Johnny Depp's pop-up appearance at Comic-Con, a completely made-up scenario that I introduced in order to transition to this very update about David Ellison's financial troubles. That one's for you, Christopher Nolan. I know how much you get off on infinite loops. I know that your spank bank is just cascading MC Escher staircases with a big old slinky traveling down and up, down and up, and 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 down and up, forever.
Thank you. I came harder than differential calculus.
Okay. I thought Christopher Nolan's initials were CEN, not TMI. His middle name is Edward. I looked it up. And don't worry, we will be getting back to Christopher Edward Nolan and his Odyssey soon enough. But first, let's say so long to Ebenezer and the Ellisons. So long for now. Because mark my word, there will be time. In fact, circle it on your calendar now, November 13th, the date that all the Ty West haters and all the Paramount Skydance haters, two clubs that I consider myself a charter member of, will assemble together to unwrap this early Christmas present called Ebenezer and look around the room and go, "You guys, are you for real right now? Who got me this? Who got me Ebenezer? Was it you? Was it you? It was? Oh my God. How did you know I wanted Ebenezer? You know me so well. You know me too well. But for now, I have been called to a higher purpose on this episode of Movie Dog. I've been summoned to the Forever Dog Studios in the middle of the night to participate in something bigger than myself. For the last 2 weeks, starting on Thursday, July 16th, when Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey premiered in theaters, online film critics and TikTok influencers and culture war firebrands and even distinguished academics have all been lining up like religious pilgrims to present their big Odyssey take on the altar of the internet. And on the one hand, that's nothing new. It's a momentous occasion for the movie commentariat anytime a new Christopher Nolan movie comes out. for many reasons. For one, because it's almost inevitably going to be one of the biggest movies of the year. Nolan, as of yet, doesn't downshift. He doesn't take a break from blockbusters to do a low-budget indie about his childhood. Every movie is bigger than the last in almost every way. Even the size of the camera keeps getting bigger. The Dark Knight was the first major studio film to be partially shot with IMAX cameras, and now The Odyssey is the first major studio film to be shot entirely with IMAX 70mm cameras. But of course, it's not just the film technology. It's the scope and structure of the storytelling, the practical effects, the action sequences, the sound, the size of the props. They had the actual screen-used Trojan horse outside of City Walk AMC for a few weeks. And it was so massive, it was terrifying. If it had tipped over during peak hours, the carnage would have been incalculable. How big can Chris go? As long as we don't know the answer to that question, his movies will continue to be treated like a trip to the World's Fair. When people saw a Ferris wheel for the first time, and the zipper. Nolan has, almost single-handedly, kept alive the legacy of the box office auteur in the tradition of Spielberg and Lucas and Cameron. And he's been so successful at it, so adamant about maximizing the movie theater experience, that you now see this new generation of box office auteurs coming up under him. Ryan Coogler, Greta Gerwig, Denis Villeneuve, who even included a title card with the Dune 3 extended scene that played before the Odyssey that said, "With heartfelt thanks to Christopher Nolan, I give you a glimpse of Dune Part 3. And I'll hand it to Villeneuve, because although I'm sure he meant it, the heartfelt thanks and all that, this was also a pretty clever bit of politics, because in the absolutely breathtaking glimpse of Dune 3 that he showed us, essentially a long battle scene, my first thought was, this motherfucker's trying to upstage the Odyssey. The opener is trying to upstage the headliner. With heartfelt thanks to Christopher Nolan, I'm gonna cuck you on your big night, buddy. And he almost succeeded. Dune 3 looks amazing. But then the sound of the Odyssey started to shake the theater. That Ludwig Göransson score, those ancient drones and drums, that first wide shot of the Trojan horse half submerged in the sand, filling the screen, and your whole body is vibrating. And you're like, damn. This is why it was so hard to get a freaking ticket. So nice try, Denis. Unfortunately, you were opening for Led Zeppelin, and it's 1973. As massive as Nolan's previous movies have been, nothing has felt quite as massive as The Odyssey. Both the movie itself and the audience response to it. It did $650 million worldwide in 10 days. What the fuck? 10 days. It only dropped 30% in its second weekend. That's the third lowest drop all time for a movie that earned over $100 million opening weekend. And it hasn't even, I was reading, it hasn't even come out in China yet. It's opening on 800 IMAX screens in China on August 14th. What's the ceiling here? People are seeing this thing at 2 a.m. because it's the only time they can get IMAX 70mm tickets. Or could get IMAX 70mm tickets. The 2 a.m. screenings are sold out now too. For weeks. This movie is 3 hours long and people are seeing it at 2 a.m. People like me. People who aren't even young enough to get away with it. People who have been paying for it now. For 2 weeks. This movie fucked up my life. But seeing it at 2 a.m. still infinitely preferable to not seeing it. The size is just half the story, though. Because yes, it has a big budget. Yes, it looks epic on IMAX. Yes, it has sword fights and creatures. But it is, ultimately, a lyrical and melancholy R-rated adaptation of an ancient Greek epic that uses zero CGI beyond standard digital touch-ups here and there. And it's rivaling the response that Marvel and Star Wars and Avatar received at their peaks. 650 million in 10 days. There really is no analog for what the Odyssey is doing right now. It is an undeniable pop culture phenomenon that, in its richness and refinement, is so at odds with our slop era, our basic bitch era, that it kind of single-handedly gives me hope for the future of popular cinema. The closest analog, if you scan down the list of billion-dollar movies, there have been 63 of them in movie history. The Odyssey will soon be 64. The closest analog is probably Titanic. But again, Titanic is a way more conventional crowd pleaser than the Odyssey. It has Kate and Leo and the iceberg and a big old Celine Dion song. It does not have a protracted body horror sequence in which Samantha Morton molds men into pigs in a manner that feels both sensuous and vindictive. Perhaps righteously vindictive. Titanic does not have that. The closest 21st century analog, I guess, would be Barbenheimer. But A, that's two movies. B, half of them were directed by Nolan. And C, Barbenheimer was always, to some degree, an internet gag, a gimmick. Isn't it funny that these two movies are coming out on the same day? What if we made it a thing? Barbenheimer is a testament to the internet's ability to turn something, anything, into a thing. It's essentially the same as the Minecraft movie thing last year, when teenagers all across this fair nation of ours turned their local megaplex screenings of a Minecraft movie into interactive Rocky Horror Picture Show style free-for-alls that knowingly treated the movie's B-, C+ comedy as though it was the greatest thing that had ever happened on screen. And then, of course, there was the Gentle Minions TikTok trend in 2022, when, once again, teenagers dressed up in suits and tuxedos to see Minions: The Rise of Gru, and were a big quantifiable reason why the fifth installment in the Despicable Me franchise became the highest grossing 4th of July movie of all time en route to a $940 million worldwide box office by the end of its run. It pays to let the internet hijack your movie. And although Barbenheimer was obviously not nearly as irony poisoned as Gentle Minions or Chicken Jockey, remember Chicken Jockey? Its success reinforced the same point. The only way to have a breakout box office hit post-COVID was to go viral, but in ways that you could neither predict nor even facilitate. And for reasons that often had very little to do with the movie itself, or even freely mocked the movie. And to an extent, who cares? Rock on, you gentle minions, you kings of new media. But the Odyssey is unique among post-COVID blockbusters in that pretty much all the discourse surrounding the movie, from what I've seen, minus the inevitable far-right culture war attacks, all the discourse is centered on the movie itself. And that might not sound like much of an accomplishment, but in this era, when big budget movies often seem like afterthoughts to the massive press tours and social media marketing campaigns that precede them, it's rare to see this many people just talking about the movie. And in detail. And I think it's because, to quote Bonnie Raitt, Chris gave them something to talk about. A little mystery to figure out. Chris gave them something to talk about. So many studio movies that I go to these days, because I have to. I would anyway. Wicked for Good, Supergirl, the Disney live actions. It's like they forgot to make the movie. When Wicked for Good came out, people were way more interested in the Ariana Cynthia press tour than in the movie itself. And for good reason. There was no movie there. And the press tour was compelling. When the latest Jurassic World came out, Rebirth. Remember how the internet went gaga for Jonathan Bailey's, quote, slutty little glasses? Those wire-framed hexagonal spectacles that his character wore in the movie? The internet couldn't get enough of Jonathan Bailey's slutty little glasses. And I remember getting so mad in that pathetic way that middle-aged men get mad about the culture as though they should have been consulted first. Nobody asked me what I thought about Jonathan Bailey's little glasses. I got so mad. What do you mean, slutty little glasses? They're just glasses! They're just normal glasses. Not everything is a capital T thing. Not everything is grist for the content mill. Some things, most things in fact, are nothing. The slutty little glasses are nothing. The Nicole Kidman AMC promo, I'm sorry, is nothing. The movie is supposed to be the thing. Now, that being said, with a little bit of distance from the slutty little glasses, I see them a little differently now. I see them now as an expression of interest in a thing that was not interested enough in itself. The slutty little glasses mania, the Ariana Cynthia press tour mania. At some level, this is an expression of interest in the movies. It's the movies that are not rewarding that interest. And so what is an audience to do? They got to entertain themselves somehow. All right. I guess we'll make do with the slutty little glasses till y'all get your shit together and remember how to make a movie. I remember I also used to get so mad about people cheering for the Nicole Kidman promo, which still runs before every AMC screening, even though that old cheering has largely died down. But back in its heyday, that thing would get raucous applause. I was like, what is this, a Minecraft movie? They're saying the lines before she does. And I would just sit there stewing. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. This is not camp. This is not a thing. It is just a commercial. Stop drawing attention to yourselves. But now that they don't cheer anymore, I'm like the aforementioned Ebenezer Scrooge, regretting the influence that his coldness and crankiness has had on the world. Doesn't anyone want to cheer? I say sadly, as the promo plays to a silent theater before a Tuesday 1 p.m. screening of Pinocchio Unstrung. Because what was the cheering really? Was it so obnoxious? Or was it just the sound of people excited to be at the movies? More excited, in many cases, than the people who had made the movie, or forgotten to make the movie. Christopher Nolan, though, did not forget to make the Odyssey. And that's why we can't stop talking about it. Did Matt Damon even go on Hot Ones? I don't know. And I don't care. You don't need a substitute for the movie when there's a movie there. And just to clarify, I'm not saying that everyone likes the Odyssey or has to like the Odyssey. I'm not even saying yet the extent to which I liked the Odyssey. I'm saying that out of all the movies that have quote unquote saved the movies post-COVID, Top Gun Maverick, Barbenheimer, take your pick. The Odyssey will end up being the most impactful because of the way it has restored a passionate sincerity to the movie-going experience. The way it has rewarded people's enthusiasm for going to the movies. The way it has made audience connoisseurship cool and desirable again. Universal banned influencer screenings for the Odyssey. That rules. One of the most disingenuous modes of movie marketing there is, influencer screenings. Paid shills. Hey, y'all, I just got out of Scream 7, and I am still shaking. Oh, my God. I think this might be my favorite movie of all time. Even better than Tokyo Story. Like and subscribe. And then at the bottom in little print, paid promotion. Nolan and Universal said, nah, we're good. We're good. We made a movie. We're good. We're good. I think we'll just let the movie that we're confident in inspire genuine reactions from people. Let's see where that goes. The movie itself, along with Nolan's reputation, was the marketing strategy. Universal wasn't trying to trick you by swearing that, I don't know, Longlegs is the scariest movie since Silence of the Lambs. They weren't trying to distract you with Jonathan Bailey's slutty little glasses. All they said was, hey, you want to watch a fucking movie? And guess what audiences said? Hell yes! That's what we've been asking for! Didn't you hear us cheering for the Nicole Kidman promo for years? What do you think that meant? We're excited to be here. Now, there has been plenty of reporting in the last 5 years about the, quote, death of the movies and the, quote, end of movie theaters due to declining box office and creative stagnation at the major studios. But what has not been reported on as extensively is this completely opposite energy that has been growing parallel to the prematurely rumored death of the movies. There is this passionate recommitment to the movie-going experience that has been going on all around us. And I know the numbers are the numbers, and the box office certainly tells a story. As good as 2026 has been, it still will not exceed 2019's box office, and that's not even including inflation. But there was always something strange to me about reporting on the death of the movies and movie theaters in an era when people regularly go online to dissect and categorize the AMC theater-going experience like it's a new religion, and debate aspect ratios and color grading. And these are not ASC certified cinematographers. These are just everyday people who are curious about the things they like. It was always my assumption that the movies are not dying, at least not permanently. They're just going through the periodic process of decay and renewal that the movies have been going through every 10 to 15 years since the silent era. Now, the old forms are certainly dying. The comic book movie, for example. Just like, I don't know, the big budget studio musical died out in the late 60s. When it ceased to reflect the zeitgeist and matter to people. And although the decline and fall of the comic book movie means the loss of a reliable audience, hence the box office slump, it also means the rejuvenation of a dormant audience that felt alienated by the comic book movie era. I am one of those people. There was a point in the 2010s when I began to have this depressing realization that the movies weren't for me anymore. The movies weren't for the movie dogs. They were for the Easter egg obsessed Comic-Con hordes who had turned my beloved medium into a game of Where's Waldo. Did you catch the reference to Thor's hammer in the second end credit sequence of whatever the fuck? No, I didn't. I left the second it said directed by the Russo brothers. I left a movie dog-shaped hole in that wall over there. Oh my god, I saw the funniest movie. It's called Thor, Love and Thunder. Oh my god, I saw this movie that had some really interesting things to say about politics. It's called Captain America Civil War. Well, I'm glad you all had fun, because those were dark days for the movie dog. And look, it was just the unrelenting hegemony of it all. I wasn't really mad that comic book movies wanted to be funny or political or experiment with genre. That's great. I was mad that they were replacing the genres they were, in many cases, poorly imitating. Comedies, rom-coms, shoot-'em-ups, conspiracy thrillers, all subsumed into the monolith of the MCU and Jurassic World and the other franchises. I was mad that the middle class of cinema was disappearing. which had been my bread and butter since I was a kid. And in its place, this soul-sucking commercial competence overtook Hollywood in the 2010s. And if you ask me, the movies were much closer to dying then, despite the box office optimism, than they are now, after the bubble has popped. I started really going to the movies again, like weekly, in 2023. And what I have experienced over the last 3 years is a growing sense that the movies are not just returning, they're returning with a vengeance. And it was the audiences that started it, that demanded it. And now the movies are finally catching up. And with the release of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, we have a movie that epitomizes and capitalizes on that energy. The first week of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey will go down as one of 21st century cinema's canonical events. Being at that City Walk IMAX at 2 a.m. on opening night, it felt like an esoteric ritual that we were all participating in. It felt like something's happening. And I gotta say, Nolan picked the perfect source material to channel the ritualism of that moment with his ancient drones and drums and the wine-dark sea and the candlelit temples and palaces. The arcane magic of a monocultural phenomenon in the era of online stratification. If they had thrown a goat into Auditorium 19, we might have torn it to pieces and drank its blood. It was a special night. And since that night, I have been waiting patiently, so patiently, to present my big Odyssey take. Because as you of course know, internet movie takes have to be presented in an orderly, single-file line, one at a time, so that the discourse doesn't get oversaturated and has time to adapt to whatever nuances or new perspectives each take contains, one at a time. And you know me, movie dogs. I don't want to be at the front of the line. I don't move that quickly, that feverishly anymore. Let the hot take merchants and the influencers, who sadly had to pay for their tickets this time, let them take the first crack. Let the podcasts that need to hit a specific number of weekly impressions to satisfy their advertising commitments go first. I'm still thinking. I gotta see it again. Let the backlash blow into town, the inevitable backlash, and blow right back out again. Only then will I take my turn. And so, when Emily Wilson, the translator of the version of Homer's Odyssey that Nolan used for his screenplay adaptation, published the ultimate backlash take earlier this week, who saw this coming, in the London Review of Books, in which she essentially called Christopher Nolan a basic bitch that couldn't locate the nuances in her translation with a Acme-sized magnifying glass. I said, all right, I got next. Here's what I want to say first about the Odyssey. Nearly, an hour into an episode in which I've already said a lot about the Odyssey. Here's what I want to say first. I mean first as in first principles. Here's where I want to start with the Odyssey. And it's not earth-shattering as far as first principles go. But it was the first place my mind landed after I left my screening of the Odyssey, a little after 5 a.m., by the way, and wandered down City Walk toward the parking garage. My mind was pretty loose from lack of sleep. And all of these images and sounds and snippets of dialogue from the movie were rattling around inside. And I started to panic that I wasn't getting a handle on the movie. I didn't even know how I felt about it. I was panicking that as a critic, I had squandered my big moment. It was just such an experience, particularly in IMAX 70mm, that it was refusing to resolve into thoughts in my head and was remaining just sensations. So when I got to my car, I took a deep breath and I said, get a hold of yourself. Just start with a simple critical exercise. Just start somewhere and find a way in. So I opened up my Letterboxd app and I went to this list that I've been keeping. My best to worst rankings of every new movie I've seen this year. 63 in total so far, because I'm a fucking madman with this AMC pass. And I go into this list and I plop the Odyssey down, for starters, at number 15 out of 63. I figure it's a movie I enjoyed. I can say that much. I enjoyed it for sure. It was electrifying in many ways, visionary even. But I'm still wrestling with it, and I don't know, maybe there were a couple things I didn't like. Let's start at 15. And then I play the better than, worse than game, which is how I maintain this rough ranking of these movies throughout the year. I'm going to tell you how it works. It's really simple. You can play it at home. Number 1, start with a conservative ranking, plus or minus 5 or 7 spots from where you expect the movie to land. Number 2, ask yourself, is this movie better than or worse than the movie ranked immediately above it? If better than, move it up a ranking and ask the same question about the next movie ranked above it. If worse than, ask the same question about the movie ranked below it. Number 4, continue this process until the new movie is both worse than the movie ranked immediately above it and better than the movie ranked immediately below it. The resulting middle ground is the movie's official ranking. So, for example, I ask myself, is The Odyssey at 15 better than The Wrecking Crew at 14? The very fun and frankly underrated action comedy starring Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa that was criminally deprived of a theatrical release by Amazon MGM. I always say Amazon MGM like MGM has a say in the matter. Criminally deprived of a theatrical release by Amazon and sent straight to streaming. Yes, The Odyssey is better than The Wrecking Crew. One of my favorite action movies of the year, but not as good as The Odyssey. And so I continued like that, with The Odyssey moving up a spot, then another spot, then another spot, until after a minute or so of swiftly leapfrogging every film in its path. Really good films, even some great films. Continental 25, Elvis Presley in Concert, Nirvana the band, the show, the movie, The Furious, Obsession, The Bride, Pillion, The Devil Wears Prada 2. I don't care if I'm alone on that one. Sound of Falling, 28 years later, The Bone Temple, Blue Heron, The President's Cake, among others. Pretty good year for movies, by the way. Pretty exciting year. Perhaps the big rebirth year. We'll see. And so after a minute of going better than, I found that The Odyssey was in the number 1 slot, representing the best movie I've seen so far this year. And the journey from 15 to 1 was, unlike Odysseus' journey, pretty effortless and automatic. And this was a movie that I'd walked out of the theater going, okay, wow, what happened there? What do I even think about this? And that's when the obvious realization hit me. Right. Christopher Nolan is completely in a class of his own now. I started him at 15 because I have high standards for his movies, but when you start to compare him to his contemporaries, many of whom are great, there's just no comparison right now. And not just because he shot the whole thing on an IMAX camera, not just because he just won an Oscar 2 years ago, not just because he turns Oppenheimer biopics and Odyssey adaptations into billion-dollar box office hits, not just because of his unique ability to make smart blockbusters, not just because his camera work and the way he uses space and paces his shots has gotten so much more refined over the years, not just because of the sophisticated centripetal editing style that he's utilized since working with Jennifer Lame, not just because he continues to get incredible performances from his A-list troops, not because of any of those things in isolation, but because of all of them coming together as a whole every time. And just like there's no analog for what the Odyssey is doing right now, there's no analog for what Nolan is doing right now. And here's the thing. I have always been adamant that as a professional movie critic, and I am a professional movie critic, I do not grade on the attempt. I grade on the result. I take the attempt very much into consideration. What is the movie trying to accomplish? What is it trying to say, if anything? What genre is it working in, et cetera, et cetera. The attempt is a big part of the grade because it informs the result, but I don't grade on the attempt. That's why I didn't like Eddington or Weapons as much as some people last year. Cool attempts. Not crazy about the results. That's me. But it turns out there really is an exception to every rule. When it comes to the Odyssey, I am grading to a degree on the attempt because the attempt itself is visionary. What I usually mean when I say I don't grade on the attempt is, okay, so you tried to make a Doctor Strangelove. You tried to do a True Grit kind of thing. You tried to deconstruct the rom-com. I don't grade on the attempt because the attempt is almost always based on some conventional cinematic form. It's almost always derivative or formulaic. And derivative and formulaic ideas can be super compelling in cinema. But ultimately, I'm not giving you credit for trying to deconstruct the rom-com. Anybody can think of that. You have to do it. I'm also not implying that the Odyssey just completely comes out of nowhere. I know Nolan's been citing 2001, like always, as an influence, and Ray Harryhausen movies, and so on and so forth. The Odyssey certainly has its influences, like any movie, of course. We're going to talk a lot about them today. But what it's attempting is so singular, so massive, so visionary. Nothing short of a complete reinvention of popular cinema that is both critically compelling and financially viable. That, yeah, I'll give you credit for the attempt on this one. We're going to talk about the result, too. Believe me, we're going to talk about the result. I'll give you credit for the attempt. Because the attempt, in Nolan's case, is also a version of a manifesto. One of the secrets of Christopher Nolan's box office success, particularly over his last two movies, Oppenheimer and the Odyssey, is that he shares his audience's righteous indignation that a couple of dorks like David Zaslav at Warner Brothers and Ted Sarandos at Netflix tried to exploit the cataclysm of COVID to destroy movie theaters and enrich themselves in the process. during the last 5 years. That they tried to make the movies smaller so they could make themselves bigger. Nolan's career since moving from Warner Brothers to Universal to make Oppenheimer has been a big middle finger to the C-suite mentality that put Tenet on streaming the same day it was released in theaters and destroyed Nolan's trust in Warner Brothers, his home for 20 years. And what Nolan is attempting now with each new movie is the salvation of the movie industry and the theatrical experience by making movies that are so big and so impactful and so lucrative that Zaslav and Sarandos and their cronies can't say shit. Audiences understand that, if not consciously, instinctively. Because during the desert years after COVID, when they cheered diligently every time the Nicole Kidman AMC promo played, they weren't just cheering for Nicole Kidman. They were cheering because they knew there was still life left in this medium. They were cheering because they knew that a movie like The Odyssey was coming, and they could feel it. But where did The Odyssey come from? How did Nolan get here as a filmmaker? How does any filmmaker get to the point where their lyrical, melancholy adaptation of The Odyssey is the biggest blockbuster of the summer? This episode of Movie Dawg is all about the cinematic odyssey of Christopher Nolan's career and how, across 5 creative phases, he evolved from the director of Following, a $6,000 micro-budget noir, to the director of The Odyssey. I want to examine these 5 phases both on their own and in relief against the careers of other filmmakers as a way of understanding Nolan's evolution and how The Odyssey fits into the creative arc of his filmography. All of that and more after the theme song.
The backbone of this country is the independent film critic. The power of movies must be protected. The best thing about movies is the feeling they give. It's a feeling I want to feel every day. Movie Dawg! Movie Dawg! Movie Dawg! Movie Dawg!
This is Movie Dawg, the weekly show that sinks its teeth into the present, the past, and the future of the movies. I'm Brett Boehm, a.k.a. the Georgia Movie Dawg. And if you enjoy this show, if you're a fellow Movie Dawg, I would love for you to subscribe to the Movie Dawg Patreon at patreon.com/moviedawgshow. It is the best way to support Movie Dawg, and it helps me to keep making this show that I love week after week. And in return for your generous support, you get one high-quality, no-bullshit bonus episode every week. And right now, the Philly Movie Freak and I are in the middle of our 1990s season of Weekend at Bergman's, the bonus show where we pit a popcorn movie versus an art house movie, and we have to say which one we like better, and we have to be honest. Last week, we did A Brighter Summer Day versus Boys in the Hood. Great episode, 2 great movies, hard choice, don't miss it. And coming up next, oh baby, we've already teased it. I believe we're recording it tomorrow, so this thing should be coming out soon. We needed a little extra time because it's a big one. We're going to bring you an episode all about Martin Scorsese's 90s filmography, ranking them worst to best. Can anything beat Goodfellas? There's Casino, there's Cape Fear, Age of Innocence, Bringing Out the Dead, Kundun. What a wild run Scorsese had in the 90s. And we're going to pick what we think is the best one. So tune in to find out. Only one 90s Scorsese movie can move on to the 90s tournament. Which one will it be? And then we'll also get caught back up. We've got a Metropolitan versus Clueless coming down the way. We've got a Irma Vep versus Bram Stoker's Dracula versus Batman Returns coming at you soon. Only on the Patreon. And that's not all. As a Patreon subscriber, you also get access to the full episodes of Movie Dawg. So if you're listening to this or watching it right now on a free feed, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much. But this episode will stop playing in a minute. And to access the full episode, you got a pretty big chunk on this one for free. But to access the full episode, to go on a deep dive with me into Christopher Nolan's filmography, and believe me, you're going to want to go on that deep dive, and explore how it informs the style and the meaning of the Odyssey, well, all you got to do is sign up for the Patreon. There's a $5 tier for audio. There's a $10 tier for video. That's patreon.com/moviedawgshow. You can also sign up for a 7-day free trial. See what you think. Patreon.com/moviedawgshow. All right. So, Nolan's 5 phases. Let's start over from the beginning with Christopher Nolan.